Classroom discussion from January 10th, 2012. Today we talked about the construction of the Statue of Liberty. The Statue of Liberty. It was a gift from the French to celebrate the 110-year anniversary of the Declaration of Independence. It needed to be put together from 214 crates of pieces. The parts were housed on a place called Bedloes Island, which is in New York Harbor. It would end up being the largest statue in the Western world. It was built in Paris and broken down into 350 massive pieces. The cost to reassemble it would be astronomical, and New York did not have the money to do so. 6 other cities tried to get the statue. New York could have lost it. We discussed in class how crazy it would be to see the Statue of Liberty in Chicago or St. Louis or Los Angeles or San Francisco. Joseph Pulitzer, owner of the New York World newspaper, won't let that happen. He launches the largest fundraiser in the history of the United States. Millions of people read Pulitzer's paper. Donations come from all across the country, from rich and poor people. 121,000 donations pour in to Pulitzer's newspaper offices. In class, we heard reenactments of little kids' letters talking about sending money from their piggy banks and money that they'd saved up to go to the circus. They were getting all kinds of money, not big dollar amounts always. Sometimes it was just change. The pedestal will be the biggest concrete structure in the world. That is the first thing they had to build, was the pedestal that the statue sits on. 200 men were involved in that. The statue was designed by a man named, last name Eiffel. He's the person who designed the Eiffel Tower in Paris. There are 60,000 pounds of hand-sculpted copper in her robes. The robes make up the Statue of Liberty. The job is as difficult as it is dangerous. Remember, it's 150 feet off the ground. It's pretty high, no cranes at that time, so it was all done with ropes and pulleys. Her face is larger than Lincoln's on Mount Rushmore. It takes 25 years for the statue to turn the green color that it is right now. We talked in class how when it was made, it would have been a brownish, orangish color like copper is, and now it's turned to that green color. The actual name of the statue is Liberty Enlightening the World. It becomes a beacon to the rest of the world, welcoming people to the United States. We also talked about Ellis Island. 12 million immigrants passed the Statue of Liberty on their way to Ellis Island around the time that it was built. 100 million people can trace their roots of their ancestors that came through Ellis Island. There's probably some people in the class that actually their family members can trace relatives who came through Ellis Island. A couple other basic America facts that we talked about were that America is considered a land of invention, and that one of the main inventions in the late 1800s or early 1900s was the invention of the modern vertical city, meaning the building of skyscrapers. We talked in class about how before the early 1900s, most buildings weren't much more than 3 stories high, and now they're much higher than that, obviously. We also talked about migration. The people coming through Ellis Island, the Irish, the Russians, and the Italians, they moved to the big cities. while the Germans moved to the Midwest. Scandinavians moved to farmland. Eventually, more Italians live in New York than in Rome, which is the capital of Italy. It's crazy to think that at one point there were more Italians living in New York City than there were living in the capital of Italy, Rome. 24 million immigrants arrived in the United States between 1880 and 1930. These are the pieces of information that I discussed in class and will help you answer the questions on the assignment named Statue of Liberty in Skyward. Make sure that if you have any issues when you go to answer the questions that you ask me. If you're completing this at home, maybe save the assignment and ask the next time you're in class.